Now, remember when I talked about this being a thing, the whole X-Men 97 is just yet again, Marvel's trying to take advantage, and it's smart of them to do that, of kind of the nostalgia of better times. We lived, if you grew up in the 90s, you pretty much lived through peak American animation in terms of the American comic book stuff. Related stuff outside of the comic books, obviously in animation, where you had Batman the animated series and X-Men the animated series and so forth. And of course, they're kind of tapping back in. I spoke about this because, go look at now on hiatus show For Canon's Sake. I actually spoke with the writer and showrunner of X-Men, the animated series, and we had a great conversation. They actually sent me a copy of kind of some script, which is really, really cool. Shout out to Erica and Julia Leewald. But they're only on board with this as like a consultant, right? They're not in charge of really anything as far as this upcoming production. And the executive producer, this was posted on X-Men, the 60 Uncanny Years. This was a live stream that they did not too long ago. Big shout out to the Bounty in the Comics for kind of putting this together. And the executive producer, Bo DeMaio, is had some interesting things to say, which just makes this alarming more than what it already was. And this is what they said. As part of this discussion, this is DeMaio said, he came up with a pitch. He pitched it to Kevin Feige, and him and Brad could not have been more supportive and also just encouraging to make sure we got it right. This is the part that's worrisome. He continues on and he says, I think one of my favorite parts, so this, keep in mind, this is him unprovoked for the most part, bringing this up and leading with it. And he says, and I quote, I think one of my favorite parts was like they were truly interested in like what my experience as a black gay man was and how it was going to inform the story we were telling. See, he says, also continues on, it says, and that to them was like, that is how we're going to make this authentic. Okay. He says he didn't explain, he says, because really what you're talking about with X-Men, I don't care what your religion, your nationality, your sex or gender, you walk into a room full of people and you've gone, oh my gosh, there is no one in here like me. And I think that is ultimately what X-Men is trying to get at. He went on. And so then I went back to the desert for about 2 weeks, came up with the entire first season and came back. And we got Eric and talking about Julia Leewald and Larry Houston to come on board and be like, am I screwing this up? Such an amazing creative partners, parents, I call them, just moral and creative support. So this is my thing. As a creative, and I think many of you guys are going to agree with me, that should be completely irrelevant. It's hilariously, he says that as he explains, he doesn't care about any of that stuff, but he also says one of his favorite parts was that they were interested in how it was going to inform the story that they were telling. And it specifically appealing to that is what I'm guessing Feige and Brad were saying. That's in itself is how they're going to make this whole deal authentic. For me, that should be completely irrelevant, to the story it is that you're telling. I have other writers that are going to be doing some stuff with Riververse. Obviously, we haven't announced those that aside from myself, and that's not even a topical conversation because I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I don't need you to. First of all, we'll be able to pick up on the story if you're trying to lead with that sort of weird stuff. But it's not about you, dude. You are a writer, okay? So in this case, you're a producer. So your whole goal here is something that you didn't create has already been established, and so you're trying to do a depiction of it that resonates with the audience, especially because you're dipping back into that nostalgia anyway, and it's something that they would want to invest in and maybe watch and of course support. That should be completely detached from your sexuality. It shouldn't even matter, or your race or your sexuality shouldn't even matter, because you're depicting characters that you didn't create. Now, of course, there's going to be the weirdos, and I got to bring this up because there's going to be some crack smokers that are like, oh, X-Men were created to would depict the civil rights era, and they were created to because of bigotry and all these other sorts of stuff that I've gone through extensively. You can go watch my video. It's titled X-Men and the Social Justice Myth, if I'm not mistaken. You can go watch me debunk a lot of, particularly the civil rights era. That stuff is false. And it's hilarious that people think that, I guess, certain groups are the only people historically that have ever been like discriminated against, or even the X-Men for that matter, like the only people that have been discriminated against in comic books. Is quite hilarious. Nonetheless, it's irrelevant to this story. This person being a gay black man is irrelevant to the story. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's completely dead on arrival. I can't do that. I don't have enough information to present that. I would love to know what you guys think, but that absolutely is alarming because they just brought it up in their little live stream, and this doesn't speak to the good news. Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Rippaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Rippaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Rippaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.